Welcome to the Supercharge Your Sales Velocity podcast, the show where I help you drive more opportunities, bigger deals, and faster wins. I'm your host, Fergal, and in today's episode, we're going to do a deep dive into sales leadership with an exceptional guest. My guest today is a high-performing, high-output VP of sales who, over the past decade, has risen rapidly through the ranks, moving from individual contributor roles to leadership, coaching and mentoring of top performing sales teams. Currently, he serves as the VP of Sales at SalesManago, a European hypergrowth SaaS company providing an AI-powered customer engagement platform, which is tailored for mid-market e-commerce organizations. Brett James, welcome to the podcast.
Nice to be here, Fergal. Thank you for inviting me on.
Much appreciated for you joining us today. Listen, in the intro, I talked a bit about your sales journey, but I'd love to hear in your own words just how you've gone from that sales individual contributor role to where you are today. Give us a bit of sense of that journey.
Yeah, of course. I'll probably start from the very beginning, from outside of university. Got my first job outside of university at 21 in a marketing agency in my local city where I grew up. Quickly worked my way up there. I was account managing, so actually sort of looking after the clients, but quickly I grew the appetite to win new business off my own back, really. It quickly became apparent from there that new business was for me, sales was for me. So I had a great journey there, learned a lot about business in an old school marketing agency, and that propelled me then to actually move to one of their competitors where I was for a year. And I learned even more about winning new business, the sales fundamentals, business development in general. And actually from there, Fergal, I worked under a CRO there who is still a mentor to me today. And he taught me a lot and actually gave me the platform to actually go and leave there and build my own business. So from there, I took a different turn, probably from a usual sales career journey, to be honest. I wanted to go on my own quite early in my career. We had a very good idea, myself and a business partner. We wanted to get into the SaaS space. So we partnered with a UK marketing automation provider. And that the whole objective and sort of vision for the marketing agency was to resell that software into certain industries, in particular automotive, because that's where my background was in those particular marketing agencies. And we had great success in 6 months.
You've gone from an individual salesperson to owning your own business, essentially.
Correct. Very early on.
Right.
Very early on,
Yeah.
I did. But I then pick up the individual contributor path back up again when I sell my business after 6 months to the marketing automation provider. We grew really well. We did really well revenue wise. And the SaaS business, the marketing automation platform that we partnered with, Force24, they wanted to acquire us and us, myself and the partner, to come on board there. So we did. So it was then that my individual contributor path picked back up, and I joined Force24 as an individual contributor to spearhead their sales growth and growth in general, which I did for the first 2 years there. We had a phenomenal time. It was a great part of my career. And then as usually is the case, Fergal, the best ICs are usually eyed up for leadership positions. It was there that I transitioned into a player manager role, pretty much. So I managed the small sales team that we had there back then. And then that year that I was managing that team, we actually helped. We were a really key part in helping to secure Series A investment. And from there, it really scaled to my sales leadership career really scaled to another level, Fergal, that I probably wasn't prepared for, to be honest. So we got Series A investment. And then we had to grow the team from around 5, I think it was back then, to 18, pretty much overnight. Within the space of 4 to 6 weeks, the investment dropped. We had to hire 10 SDR and 6 new AEs. It was crazy. The pressure was intense, massive, steep learning curve. I've got a lot of war stories from that time. Still loved my time there, but it was a very different thing to suddenly have pressures from investors as well, as I'm sure you're well aware of what that looks like. And from there, I left Force24 after that. It was the time for me to move on. And actually, in a peculiar way, you might say, I took a sideways step. I could have easily, perhaps, because I was a sales director at Force24, that was my title, I could have gone on to that role again, or VP of sales. But I actually was honest with myself and thought I still had a lot to learn, actually, in sales leadership. So I had a perfect opportunity come available at Leader as the UK country lead to grow out the UK market. I went for it and we were super successful in 2 years there, grew the UK market from near enough zero ARR to 2 million now plus at Leader. Since then, I've also been promoted to VP of Sales. So it's quite a cultured journey, if you like, Fergal. Probably a different one to one that you'd usually hear from a sales leadership perspective.
It's a very interesting journey, and there's a lot to unpack there. And I want to ask you a bit about your current role. Just give us a flavour of the team you're managing today and the type of challenges you face, and also the issues that you're solving for your clients.
Yeah, so my role's very recently changed. Leader have just been acquired by SalesManago, which is amazing for Leader, and we're all very much looking forward to the journey ahead. So my role was predominantly VP of Sales at Leader. Now it's expanded to basically be VP of Sales of the SMB team across both companies. So I've got around 20 AEs now in that team. So much larger sort of responsibility and role for me. And then in terms of what Leader is out there solving for clients and what we have solved for clients. So it's a conversational marketing platform. So it's technology that sits on a website and really helps to entice prospects and passive website visitors more so into a conversation earlier in their buying journey and then into a conversion. We know that 98% of website visitors are passive. So Leader's platform is really all about turning that passive website visitor base into conversions, into bottom of funnel sales qualified leads. We also have a back end of the platform full of great analytics and also sales enablement side as well to really fuel the sales teams as well as marketing departments. So we are a platform definitely aligning sales and marketing teams as well, which is obviously a key component in that relationship at the moment. We've only been around 6 years, founded in Helsinki, been a phenomenal journey. I've been here nearly 3 years, and the founders are geniuses, to be honest. They really hit the notes with a great product.
Sounds like you might be on a few planes now soon as well.
I've already been on a few planes. My wife's not too happy at the minute, I guess, but you got to do what you got to do, Fergal. So SalesManago are based out of Krakow, amazing office over there. They've built an amazing company and culture as well. So I've been back and forth there, and at Leader, we've got offices in Helsinki, Malaga, Stockholm. So I've done a fair bit of traveling over the last few years for sure, but it's all part of it, and great to get face-to-face time.
It is great to be face-to-face with your team. Let's go back to those individual contributor days, because I'm really interested in your success around that period of time. I'm interested in the type of, let's say, the daily habits, your mindset that you would take into that role that made you so successful and eventually you ended up being leadership material. So how did you do that?
It's a very good question, that, Fergal. When I look back at those times and some of the sort of core principles that I still believe in today, for my team as well. And I think I can share some of those principles with you. But the number one for me was I always went above and beyond the day-to-day. I was always first in the office, last out. And I know that's quite cliche to say, but I was. And I made sure that whilst I was doing that, I was just maximizing everything that I had to hand. The tools that I had to hand, how I could expand my network super quickly in terms of going out to events, getting out on the road a lot, which other people weren't prepared to do. I wanted to make sure I went the extra mile, literally, in the car, but in other areas as well, to make sure that I was just maximizing every opportunity I had at hand to build my personal profile, but also win new deals, win new customers, Fergal.
It's really interesting because I had a guest on last week, and she was saying that the work to get to the top, to be in that top 10%, is not done at work. It's the work you do outside. You talked about going to external events, getting in early, leaving late. It's all those bits outside of work, isn't it?
It is. I live in the UK, so to give you an example, my second job when I left the first marketing agency to join the rival, I live in Leeds and they were based at the other side of Manchester. I used to drive to the office most mornings, and I was opening the office at 6 a.m. for everybody else. And that was just because I just had the appetite, the determination, the drive. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to earn good money. I knew that I needed to work extra hours to get ahead of the game, to get ahead of everybody else around me to make that happen. So that's just one small example, but you've got to have that work ethic to get to the top. But you've also got to do it in a smart way. And I think that I was probably good at doing that, to be honest.
And you talk about, physically getting to the office. Do you think this new mode of working, this virtual or hybrid form of working has been detrimental to the sales game? The people are suffering a bit from not being in the office every day?
Good question. I think it depends a lot on the leadership, the principles and the values that they're driving through the team. Leadu is a remote first company. We have an office in Helsinki. We don't have an office in the UK, for example, where all of my team pretty much has been based. We have had great success, but I put that down to Fergal, the camaraderie culture we've built and the expectations and standards that I've set, to be honest, and the leadership around me, by the way, that's worked with me to make sure that, that sales culture is still embedded. And we've been lucky as well that we do have a lot of FaceTime throughout the year at different marketing events, etc. So that really helps. You've got to get the team frequently together, though, Fergal, that is for sure. But I'm a true believer that it can work as long as the right recipe is there to make it work. But I still think that face-to-face time with the team to enable that winning culture, high performance mentality is absolutely still needed, for sure. There's got to be a balance.
Yeah, I was just about to say that you're trying to get that balance. So as an individual contributor, there's challenges when you're trying to build pipeline, advance existing deals, close deals. How did you keep the focus on the funnel being healthy while you were still advancing and closing deals? How did you keep the pipeline growing?
If you spoke to any of my team today, Fergal, they would say the one thing I am constantly badgering them about is pipeline accuracy, pipeline admin, pipeline cleansing. It's the number one thing I shout about every day. Now, funnily enough, Fergal, I must admit, I wasn't the best at that in my day of doing it. You might think this sounds quite stupid, but I will say it anyway. My CRM was actually in my head. I was very good at remembering everything I needed to do. I still use CRM, etc. And it was different back then than it is now, by the way. But I was always making sure that, I had the task set. I was continuously in touch with my clients, multi-threading, getting to know the other stakeholders, but also just making sure that I held myself to account to make sure I was following up at the right time and also delivering value across the funnel. And I think there's a misperception of what value is when delivering it across the funnel. But to me, it's delivering something really highly relevant as to what they've already told you in terms of pain, challenges, and making sure that you're reinforcing how your solution can help solve those challenges. And I think there's a misperception of value, and I used to be really good at that. That's a new thing that's come out, I think, in the last 2 to 3 years. Well, you've got to deliver value, but it's nothing new. I don't think I was doing it back when I was, but it's super important that any rep's doing it.
In your discovery process, how are you unlocking the right questions to ask to uncover the value that you can deliver your client? Because I've noticed sometimes in a SaaS world in particular, discovery is treated almost as a single event. You have your discovery call and then you move on in your solutioning and your proposing and so on. I was never comfortable with that because I felt you should be always in discovery mode. Have you guys similar view?
I do have a similar view. One thing that we've implemented at Leadu is, and I think super important, Fergal, and you'll know this yourself, is aligning quickly to where the customer is in the buying journey. And I think too many SaaS businesses out there, and I've been guilty of leading teams in the past of doing this, Fergal, is everybody that comes through the door in that discovery is treated the same. One thing that we've done at Leadu is quickly, and it's down to marketing, SDR, and AE alignment. But one thing we quickly do at Leadu is score the intent of that lead or a prospect coming into the discovery stage. We score it based on intent. So, for example, if it's got a score of 1 from the SDR, that would mean that they're joining for intrigue. They don't really know what problems they've got at the minute, for example, versus a score of 4. It's a score of 1 to 4 matrix, where a 4 would be they're in market, they're halfway down the buying journey, they're nearing the decision phase of the buying journey. So actually, we don't need to do a discovery there. We actually can take them to a demo and make that a discovery demo, for example. So we're really good at, therefore, or the AEs are, at switching the call based on where that customer is in their buying journey. And that also supercharges the experience to be much more customer centric. And that also, going back to your original question, I think also sort of pushes back against that discovery feeling as though it's a single event, because you're really understanding where they are in their journey and you're delivering a really bespoke and tailored call to meet them exactly where they are in that journey. And that will only heighten their experience, or hopefully it should do, if that makes sense.
Looking back on your career, I would have thought initially you're a hunter. And then I'm seeing you're managing accounts, and now you're in leadership roles. So what type of seller do you think you are?
100% a hunter. I never relied on any inbound leads. Never once did I don't think I ever closed it or relied on an inbound lead during my marketing agency days, and certainly Force 24. I think the guys at Force 24 would still commend me on that to this day. I was utilizing the tools at my hand at Force 24 really well, such as back then LinkedIn was really coming to the fore. So I was really, really prominent on LinkedIn in trying to turn conversations quickly into bigger discovery conversations. I was great at picking up the phone, great at networking, meeting new people and getting referrals as well. So I was always utilizing my network as well, Fergal, to boost my pipeline when it might have been a bit light. Being a hunter was definitely my strong point. I would definitely say I'm one of those.
And when I look at entry-level roles into sales today, they tend to be that hunter role, don't they? They tend to be that initial SD, and then you're promoted, if you like, into maybe account management roles or account executive roles after that. Do you think that puts people off? Because there's a lot more to sales than just the hunting piece, obviously. But do you see that as in any way pushing people out of even considering a sales role? Have you come across people who just would not go near sales because of that?
I think sales is different. I think it looks a lot different. The landscape of sales and sort of that hunter mentality looks a lot different, Fergal, than it did maybe 5-10 years ago, to be honest. I think there's a very much so an over-reliance on SDRs to fill the funnel, for marketing to fill the funnel, partnerships perhaps as well. I always say to my reps, and I stand by it, if you are a hunter and you can hunt and you can build your own pipeline and book your own meetings, that will definitely separate you from the rest. And I think there's a lot, if I'm honest with you, Fergal, and maybe controversial, I do think there's quite a lot in that pool that are the rest, where they are quite happy to rely on those inbound leads, if you like, from those channels. Whereas the mentality of hunting, I believe, has diminished quite a lot in the last 5 years, I would say, because of the over-reliance on those channels and the reliance and pressures on those channels as well to deliver. I think that's a key component to that as well. So I think any sales leadership out there, I'm sure they have got to go out and find anybody who's got some sort of hunter mentality, because it's important to reach the targets that you're going to have set for you.
It's still a key element.
For sure.
So we've talked about your transition then from that IC into sales director, sales leadership, your VP role. That must have been challenging. I mean, to go from being a high-performing IC to suddenly being the manager of people, owning other people's quota. Tell us a bit about the surprises, the challenges that cropped up.
I've got many war stories, Fergal. I mean, my time at Force 24 was packed full of highs, lows, surprises, challenges. Probably wouldn't change it. If looking back at Force 24, which was really a wake-up call and a really steep learning curve for me. And I would say I'm a much, much different leader now than when I was then. When I look back at that time, I would say I was an immature leader, actually, Fergal. Even when we got Series A, I was learning on the job day to day. I was a micromanager. I was just taking it day by day and trying to fight every battle that came in front of me, rather than trying to take a step back, take a breath, analyze the situations. I was just too hands-on in the moment. But that stood me into good stead to where I am today. I mean, Force 24, the challenge of series investment was quite large. Hiring and recruiting and onboarding 18 new salespeople, I think it was overnight, took its toll on me. And then suddenly we have triple the target to hit with a load of new ramped reps, and it didn't end well, unfortunately. but it was a scar now that's helped me move forward to understand, how to approach those kind of situations, how to approach sales leadership in its own right. And also I've overcome other challenges as well since then, Fergal. I was actually diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. I think less than 18 months ago, whilst I was country lead for Leader as well. So that was a bit of a period in time as well where it sort of made me think about things a bit differently. I was still quite hands-on and heavy and micromanaging a lot of the team. And I actually think weirdly that time really helped me to just put things into perspective, if I may say so, and think about how I should lead and manage people. And I think if you ask the people at Leader who I manage now, they would say I was a total different leader. So there's been quite a multiple things that have stood me in good stead.
You needed that health scare to kind of give you a bit of a reset.
I think so. I think I did. I would say, Fergal, at times, I think I expected too much of people, and I expected them to probably work as hard as I did and do. And actually, that's not the way that the world works. And it's not the way that everybody works. Everybody works at different paces, at different ways. And it took some conversations and feedback from some of the reps that I've managed and some of my peers and some of the managers and the mentor as well to help me to understand that's just not right. You can't expect people to deliver in the same way that you did. And I think as well that cancer scare just helped me to wake up a little bit and just understand that actually it is just a job, actually, Fergal, at the end of the day. And there's more to life. And it helped me from there just see things in a different light, not only at work, but in life as well. So I've changed a lot since then, I would say.
May I ask, how's the health now?
It's good. Yeah, I'm regular surveillance, so I'm clear for now, right. Touch wood. So thank you for asking. But it was talking about surprises. That was a surprise that caught me by surprise for sure.
It catches us all by surprise, doesn't it? Something like that. I'm intrigued about some of the challenges you had there, because I'm guessing, did you fall into hero mode at any point where you're stepping in, maybe stepping over the mark a little bit with your sales team, helping them get deals over the line, or just being too involved in the process and not giving them a bit of space? Did you come across that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to mention there, actually, Fergal, because yes, I think I have been guilty to try and be the savior of the day in sales calls to help the reps rather than empowering them to do it for themselves. But one thing I forgot to mention at Force 24, when it wasn't going so well, they actually invested in some external consultants to come in and help me to develop from a coaching perspective, because what I wasn't at Force 24 when I moved into the leadership role was a coach. I wasn't a coach. I was a manager. I was just managing from the above, telling them to do things. You need to do it this way. You need to do it that way. Whereas that consulting breathed a new life into my approach to leadership. I would say now I'm a coach first. Everything that I do with my teams is coach-led. So that has also helped me to empower them to take more responsibility. So I'm finding myself in a lot less more calls now, which is really good. I don't want to be in hero mode. They're the heroes in my eyes. But I think that's a really important thing to mention, that I really believe that the modern day sales leader has to be a coach first, in my opinion. I just think that's the way that sales has evolved, that the reps, especially, the younger reps coming through now, if you like, Fergal, need that real coach first mentality to help them develop much faster than probably what was expected of reps before.
Totally agree. And the challenge is carving at that time, isn't it, during the week? I mean, you said you had something like 20 AEs there, right? So if you even only gave them half an hour each, you have a huge amount of hours per week just to try and allocate that coaching, but it's worth it. If you can be disciplined enough to do it, it is worth it, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just to give people who are listening to this an insight into I'll just talk about when I was running just the UK team at Leader. I was 2 hours per AE. I had 4 AEs back then, and I also did some work with the SDRs, but 2 hours a week would be a one-to-one around pipeline, but that would be very much coaching orientated. And then there would be a bespoke coaching session of some sort, whether it be a call playback, but very quite intense coaching throughout it, Fergal. Think of a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola on the training pitch. Stop, start, stop, start. It would be that kind of scenario. So, but I think the best leaders out there, not only in the sales arena, I would say any arena, are coaches. So it's definitely something I pride myself on. And also, Fergal, just to mention, it breeds a culture whereby sales reps start to self-coach. If they start to know what to look out for and what to try and avoid and what to try and press ahead with in calls, in deals, etc., then they'll start to self-coach themselves. So they actually start coming to the calls with, Brett, I think I made this mistake. Can we review it? This is what I think I could have done better. So they're giving you the answers once you get into it more than they were at the very start. It breeds a very great culture, in my opinion.
And it's a real sea change, isn't it, from that playing the hero manager, stepping in over the deals, to then coaching them to find solutions themselves, right?
I agreed. Totally agree. Yeah. They just become more empowered. They take more responsibility and they just feel more confident, Fergal. If they're being coached, continuously developed, there's incremental gains. There's 1% shifts every week. That's what we aim for in the team. Yeah. And that's what I think a coaching culture breeds. And that just empowers them to be better every time and notice where they need to do things differently in every next call, if that makes sense.
And throughout your career, you've been involved in talent acquisition. You mentioned trying to hire a vast number of people there in a short period of time. But what have you learned over the years there in terms of talent acquisition? I think it's probably, you talked about coaching, but talent acquisition is right up there with one of a leader's priorities. I mean, how do you go about hiring great talent?
I've firstly got to answer that by saying that was probably one of my biggest weaknesses, Fergal. I actually didn't do it very well at Force 24, for example. I think they'd agree with that. We hired some good reps, but we hired bad ones as well. And part of it was we were rushing. But even since then, I've made bad hires in other roles, to be honest. And I think I'd never appreciated just how much thoroughness needed to go into, first of all, the hiring process, and then, of course, the onboarding process following that. So I've made some changes to the way I approach that. I've got a scorecard approach now. That it's underpinned by a scorecard approach. I don't rush. I make sure we've got a good candidate pool, where I probably before didn't have as big a candidate pool, and I just basically picked from 3 at times, for example, where you've got to use the right recruitment partners to fill the right candidate pool. You've got to find great recruitment partners that you can rely on, which I've now got great partners that I always go to. Whereas before it was very haphazard, switching suppliers, not getting enough candidates, not getting the right candidates. The candidate profile, the perfect candidate profile is something that I never mapped out before properly, but now I really put the time and effort into it, Fergal. So I've put different measures in there now, and from the results we've got at Leading, from the hires we've had in recent times, it's really started to pay dividends, and moving forward, playing that forward, hopefully it does so as well for SalesManago. But definitely made a lot of mistakes there in the early years.
And as someone who's now actively involved in the hiring process, have you any advice to give to salespeople who are out there at the moment? I know some people are struggling to even get interviews. They're highly experienced people, but they're even struggling just to get to the interview stage, never mind go through the interview process itself, which can be pretty grueling sometimes. Have you any advice for how they even get over that hump?
I think there's many things you can do. Obviously, I think the main thing is any job that you're applying for, I would treat it like a sales process, to be honest. I would treat it exactly like a sales process. Start to multi-thread to key stakeholders before you even, you even get maybe accepted for an interview. And I would just make sure you've got your own pipeline there in terms of how you're going to move that deal through to hopefully getting the job. I think it works in the same way, and making sure that you approach it in the same way, doing your own due diligence, multi-threading, making sure that you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of how you will solve their pains, problems, challenges, for example. So I think getting into that mindset, Fergal, can really help the person that's going for the interview, or the salesperson in this instance, or leader, really get into a different mindset with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's great advice, and it's something I've heard before as well. So you're reinforcing that. I've named my business Supercharge Your Sales Velocity, and it's a play on the metric sales velocity, which is all about getting more opportunities into the pipeline, increasing deal sizes, improving your win rate, but also then reducing the sales cycle. And I know you have some experience in this area. Tell me a little bit about, let's pick one, say reducing the sales cycle. Any strategies you could advise on there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. I think the big one for me, Fergal, is driving urgency into deals. And it sounds easy when you say it, but it isn't. As you know, as reps up and down the country would know as well. But the number one thing that I question with my reps is, have we got a compelling event? And that sounds simple in itself as well. But actually, so many times AEs struggle to get a compelling event to drive urgency with a timestamp. And actually, it's not just about just trying to find it in a discovery call, in a demo, whatever it might be. It actually takes time to fully find one across the sales process, but really importantly, also qualify it from a key metrics perspective and figuring out what the gap is. Talking about spin selling. What is the gap that they need to fill, and how can the product achieve it? But also linking that, and we do this at Ledo, linking that with the MedPit Health Score as well. So how can that MedPit Health Score as well guide us on how to speed up that deal by figuring out what gaps we've got from a MedPit perspective as well. So I think it's a combination of the two to help the reps to try to speed up the cycle. But listen, if there's no urgency, that's going to slow deals down. There's other things that are obviously a part of that as well, such as multi-threading, etc. But I think a key linchpin to any great deal and salesperson is fundamentally finding that component event in sales processes.
And I think it gets exposed in your forecasting when you're looking at opportunities with close dates. I often used to ask, why would the client sign on that particular close date? Why would they not sign a day after or a week after? And to your point, what's the compelling event that they would sign it on that particular timeline? And if I got any kind of hesitation or vague answer, I know immediately there wasn't a compelling event and that the close date itself was probably a bit of fiction. And then that would lead into another conversation about trying to readjust the opportunity in the forecast and maybe do more discovery and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in those pipeline reviews, in the one-to-ones, it's critical to uncover those things. Like I said earlier, I very much do that from a coaching perspective in terms of, they've got to give you the answers in my eyes. You can pick holes in a deal, but let them give you the answers on how they fill those holes, those gaps, and how they intend or how they think they can move that deal forward, find that compelling event, what's missing right now kind of thing. So very much like to empower the reps to give me the answers on how they're going to do that. And I think that's really key because that's how they're going to learn to do it the next time and the next time after that. So coming at it again from that coaching angle, coaching perspective.
What's your thoughts on win rate and trying to improve the percentage win rate? Because again, it's another component of pushing forward deals, the sales velocity. If your win rate can increase, you maybe don't need as many opportunities in your pipeline.
I think it starts right at the top of the funnel, Fergal, and it's the grand old phrase saying however you want to call it, but it's sales and marketing alignment. And I think sadly still quite a lot of companies are not executing that, and sales and marketing teams are perhaps in a battle. For example, in contrast to Ledo at Force 24, as much he's actually a good friend of mine now, the old head of marketing at Force 24. We were constantly at loggerheads on, that was an immature sales leader saying to him, the leads aren't great. We've not got enough, but now when I look at my time at Ledo, I've got a partner side by side with me in Greg, he's the head of marketing at Ledo now, expanding his role as well at SalesManago. He's been phenomenal in helping me to understand the real value of marketing. And since then, we've become super aligned, and that has supercharged the win rate, not only in the UK, but Finland as well. But in particular, the UK, as we were growing the market, we quickly nailed down our ICP. We understood where we needed to go and win, how we would win together. And also underpinning that, we also sort of aligned on utilizing the challenger sales and marketing methodology as well, Fergal. So leading with value across all communication, sales and marketing, everybody and every team would sing from the same hymn sheet, and alongside the ICP and vertical strategies that we've had in the last 2 years. And that's really helped us to focus in on real quality pipeline. We've not needed as much. And also off the back of that, with a great sales process, the win rates have become higher. So I think it starts at the top, and obviously SDRs are part of that as well, and perhaps in some businesses, partnerships. But I think it's that alignment piece. It's a very overused word, but it's a powerful one if you get it right.
It's an interesting strategy, that alignment, absolutely. We've been talking for about 30, 40 minutes. I'm going to finish on one last question. Bit of advice. People who are listening to this, who may one day want to step into that VP role that you're in today, they might be thinking, how do I get there? Over the length of your career, what would you advise?
If you're a great IC, or perhaps you're a really solid sales manager, first of all, think about if you want to take that step. I would urge everybody to think about that, because it's not for everybody, Fergal. You know, I think great salespeople are often earmarked for that role because it might be the natural next step. I very nearly, after Force 24, stepped away from it because it was a baptism of fire. But I stuck with it, and I'm glad I have now. But I would say it's not for everyone. But my biggest piece of advice would be, if you're thinking about stepping into that role, get great people around you. I've been very, very lucky to have one particular mentor and support as well from other people that I've met alongside my career. But one particular mentor who's really guided me and helped me to learn quickly on how to be a leader, but both be able to transition into hands-on and then hands-off from a strategic perspective. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be, first, have a think about truly if you want to do it. But secondly, if you do, get good people around you to make sure that you can hit the ground running and deliver on what you set out to deliver.
Brett, I think that's two pieces of really good advice. I want to thank you for your time today. A lot of insights there that you've unpacked for us. Really appreciate it, Brett. Thanks so much.
Great to be a part of it. Thanks, Fergal. Nice to meet you.